Hey, and welcome back to the Pike Homestead. I'm Adam, and I'm here to continue my work on my barn upgrade project. So, in our previous videos, I finished up the chicken coops. They are all made and enclosed. The chickens are in them, and the next step to make it more chicken friendly through the winter is to get the heating actually ducted into the chicken coop. Right now, the furnace is, I think it was thrown in because it used to be all like water heated in the barn. So they had a boiler that was hooked up to pipes that ran through the floor as well as around the ceiling for radiant heating. And I guess at some point that boiler died and they decided just to throw a furnace in instead. At least that's what it looks like to me. And so they put this furnace in. They didn't put in any ducting for it. They just cut a hole in the wall that it blows through, and it's not even lined up properly to the hole because there's a stud there. But whoever put it in, they just used the parts they had and didn't adjust the gas line, because that's why the furnace is sitting where it's sitting, is because the gas line is so long. It looks like if they just grabbed an inch shorter pipe at one section, and they could have lined it up perfectly, but they didn't. They just cut their hole to size and then put in the furnace with what they had, and it doesn't line up right, which makes it difficult to connect some ducting to it. And so I don't have all the parts to properly do that. So the thing I'm specifically missing is what's called a plenum. And now what the plenums do, they are what connects your furnace to the ducting for both the hot air supply coming out of the furnace and the return air service coming into the furnace, where it draws the air in to heat up and blow back out. So the plenum boxes, usually they'll come and get installed with the furnace itself. But in this case, it did not happen. Anyway, it's what I'm stuck with, so I gotta try to work with it. But first of all, I need material to make a plenum box, at least for the supply. I'm not so concerned about the return. Again, there's a lot more ducting to get a proper return happening, and right now it works fine. It's just sucking in the air through the top of the furnace. But anyway, I need some, usually a plenum box is made out of, ducting material is made out of metal. And just, buying them by themselves, at least around here, it's not really possible. I haven't been able to find any. But what I do have, and this is, again, upcycling what we have, is with the old boiler, it also had an exhaust pipe. And as part of the exhaust pipe, to keep it, safe and not, potentially causing fires or anything, is it had this cowl around it. And this is almost the exact size what I need. It might be a little too tall, but I think the output on as far as I've been able to measure through the model, is about 14.5 inches. This is 14.25. For found material and everything, it doesn't come much better than this. And if I have to make it shorter, it's a lot easier to go with something like this than to figure out something else. So it's a big mess, and it was just a make do kind of job, I think, and it didn't make do that well. So I've got to do another make do job to make it better. Anyway, I'm really happy with finding this, and that it's the size that it's at. With very little modification, I can get this to pretty much do the job. I just have to I'll have to undo some screws here and kind of bend the metal flat and see what sort of size I have for the hole here, and what I can do to connect it to the ducting that I've got. So yeah, I'm going to start working on that today. But first I got to sort out getting accurate measurements to get this thing connected to the furnace. So I'm going to get started on that, and why don't you come along with me? So here down on the floor, this is what I've got to work with. This is the current output for the furnace. And you can't quite see it because of the grill, but the furnace kind of lines up here and ends over here. So, this is where the hot air blows out. But yes, as I said, there is a stud right there. And so if I want to properly line up this box, it needs to be, connected there. One of my big concerns with this project is air pressure. I want to build this box to catch as much of the air and channel it into the pipes, because I'm only going to have the one vent in the back room. So I want to be able to blow across or blow as far into the room as it can to better keep the place warm. And then in here, we'll probably have a little bit more ducting once we kind of figure out exactly what we're going to be doing in this space. Now, what I was able to get is just a 4-inch ducting. So I'm hoping that the reduction from this 14-inch down to 4-inch will help supply that air pressure. But to do that, I've got to make a good a good connection here so that air doesn't just blow back out into the room back there, and that it actually goes up and into the piping. So it's going to be an interesting challenge to make that happen. But having the right material, having metal to be able to, like, if I can connect it right up to the thing and just seal it with tape around there as it blows out, hopefully not too much escapes at that point and can go through the system and blow where we want it to be going. Now, I have never done any duct work or anything like that. I have worked a little bit with HVAC systems and stuff in my previous work, but it's been purely, surface kind of making sure it's working and troubleshooting basic temperature problems in a massive building. I have some understanding of how things work, but I've never actually done this before, so this is going to be fun. This is going to be challenging. Getting it to work the way I want it to work may have me in tears, or it may just work. I'm hoping for the latter, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, so first thing I got to do is I got to get this grill off and just see what I can do. I've already taken a look at the furnace and seen if I can kind of shift it, even just to kind of turn it or something to line it up better with this. And it doesn't seem like it wants to. I can shift it kind of one way, but it's the wrong kind of direction, and I can't get it to shift on this end here. So I think probably what I'll do, and probably the quickest and easiest with the tools and abilities I have, is to open this up a little bit more, and then assess the damage and see if it would make sense to just kind of reinforce the opening, which might be good for airflow as well, because as it is, it's just open. So even though the air here is fairly effective at warming up this room very quickly, a lot of it will be getting lost up inside the walls too. So still warms up the area, but it's not ideal when you want to have the air warming up the room. So anyway, I'm going to start getting this off and get a closer look at what I've got, and I'll probably start cutting some stuff and we'll see what happens. And this is what it's like on the other side. That is the furnace and the horrible mess that's all around it that's been left here since before we moved in. I haven't really done much in here. I think I spent the most time in here this morning as I was trying to figure, if I could move this thing around. And let me just see what we can do here. So even the front plate here, that wasn't on there. I put that on there this morning. It wasn't in the room. It was out in one of the junk piles. All right, I've got the plate for the other side too that apparently isn't there. And, I've got no way of putting it on. You see, it's almost flush to the wall. And I don't have the wiggle room to move it. Even the electrical for it was just left hanging. And it was falling down in front of the output down here. It was hanging down there and going across the hot air output on that side. So I've tacked that up on both sides because it goes right around it, and made it in general a little safer. But even that electrical connection is scary. So it's something I might have to redo at some point in the future. But for now, it's good enough because my project is not to deal with that. It's to get air blowing out where I want it to blow. So, I'll probably, if I'm having to come in and out, I need to clean all this stuff up anyway. I mean, look at this. It's just a mess. There's parts and stuff of the old boiler system. There's dead and broken lights. There's those, and the fixtures I tossed in here, but everything else was already here. Like, got an old kettle. And I think that's barn chain oil for a chainsaw. And, bits of ducting for the exhausts and everything just all thrown in. just in a giant mess. Some, insulating panel foam and stuff. It's just a mess. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna get looking at this wall and seeing what I can do with it. Alright, a little creative cutting and getting access to areas there, and some cleanup in the other room, which actually makes it a lot better to work in. I finally got access to the whole output of the furnace, and this thing pretty much perfectly lines up. If you saw, I don't know how much it showed there in the time lapse, but this pretty much is bang on the right size. It's just a matter of lining it up, attaching it somehow, and then sealing it with the foil tape that I've got. To help with the hanging it on there, it's got these metal flaps that are on the inside, but I can just bend them like I have here, just bend them out, and they'll give me some material with which to possibly just drive a screw through to hold it in place so I get it taped on. Now, this end, I've got to make flush. I want to close it up as much as possible, make the hole as small as possible, and then see how it lines up to the outtake that I've got to see what I need to modify to make it work. So all it is just screws and more metal flaps here. So it's just a matter of taking the screws out, folding it flat, reattaching the screws, and then covering the seams with tape. The tape is, again, to keep it airtight so that the hot air isn't just blowing and whistling straight through all the holes and losing air pressure throughout the rest of the system. So I'm going to start taking this bad boy apart. I'm just going to get these 4 screws off and see if I can bend these kind of flush and see what size of hole we get. So sometimes a project comes together just by happenstance and seems to work perfectly. So I got this box, the box, kind of put together, kind of squared it off, got rid of that big angle and the big huge hole in it, made it a little bit smaller and better for this. It's still not perfect. I mean, it's got to connect to this. So I need a fairly, need to be a little smaller than that. Lying on the floor, or right next to the furnace, is a square panel, the exact size I need, looking like it's been cut out of the metal for the paneling of the furnace itself. I don't know the history or why of it. It was just sitting there. I thought I'll take a look, see if it fits. I don't even have to cut any metal to get this completely connected and airtight. It's amazing. I'm so happy with that. So I'm going to keep going with this, and I may well have a full plenum box I'm ready to connect here by the end of my filming today, which is, well, for just being a couple hours today, is a lot faster than what I thought. If I can get this done, and it'll just be a matter of cutting out the square I need, that'll be fantastic. I am so happy with that. All right, so I'm gonna get tinkering with this and get it all connected, and we'll keep working. Alright, so I'm ready to begin working on the metal here. Now this is significantly thicker, it's a thicker gauge than what's on the rest of the box there, because that's just, standard ducting kind of aluminum. This is a bit of a thicker sheet because I believe it was a plate actually cut off of the furnace itself. But it's the exact right size for what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it up here to fit this bad boy on it, the takeoff, and yeah, so I'm going to get that on there. When I was buying the parts, I wasn't really sure how I was going to design this, and I was half expecting to have to build it out of wood, and then I was going to have it sitting, outside the wall a bit. So I got a top takeoff to grab the air and have it go straight up. Turns out I don't need that because that box isn't quite wide enough to have this sit on the top of it. So it's got to be on the end. So I should have grabbed a side takeoff, which would have, angled it up. But I have, flexible ducting, so I can just bend it and run it up the wall. And I can always change that out later. But for what I need now, I need to pre-drill some holes in this bad boy, mark off the sizing for this to set it in there, and attach it, and then put it all together, and then try to attach it to the furnace, turn it on, see if it works. So, I've got everything I need to mark it up and cut it, so I'm gonna get going on that. So here it is all together. It came together really smoothly and easily. I'm really happy with how it came out. So now the challenge is getting it attached and functioning. So I'm going to move ahead with that, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, anyway, just wanted to show what I've done. I've used a lot of foil tape just because this is kind of thrown together, so I'm foiling every single crease and nook and cranny to keep it as airtight as possible. So, it's all the way around here, all around the edges. It's also all around on the inside, around every connection and everything, because there was a fair amount of play around where the metal folds around the cut there. So I just wanted to make sure especially that area was well sealed. And I think I've achieved it, probably a little bit too much, but whatever. I've got the tape, may as well use it and make sure. Okay, so I'm going to figure out a way to mount this over here, and we'll just keep on going. So I've got it kind of set in. I've turned on the furnace, and I just want to see, I'm just going to press it up here and see just how well it works. It's not quite flush at the bottom. It's just slightly longer than it is wide. It's like 14 inches by 15 type of, not even, 14 by 14 and a half it looks like. But that's possibly something I can span, maybe seal it somehow, but we'll see how it goes. But once it starts blowing here, I'm just going to press it up against there and see what the airflow is like coming out. I can already kind of feel it going. Oh, that's working beautifully. I might not need to do much just get it mounted into place, because yeah, it doesn't need a perfect seal, that's for sure. It's coming through beautifully, nice and strong. This project is working. One of the downsides though is that once I cut that extra bit out to be able to get that screw in, I could have put this on top. Oh well, next time. One thing I do want to try to do though is maybe get it resting on something so it's a little bit more flush to where I want it to be and kind of leveled out. And then I might just run some tape along the top here, just to make it nice and snug. But I want this a little bit straighter and flush with the holes. so that I can get a screw in on this side and get it in there a little firmer. That would be great. Fortunately, I don't think I can get a screw in on that side because it's just not enough room. Well, I can always see if I can get in there, but I don't think I have enough room to even get the drill into it. But this one I can. I'm gonna do something here. Okay, I'm gonna have to go wrap it around. Do it on the inside. Do have some self-tapping screws for that. One last try. This is long enough to reach. It's not. Not without cutting off more of the wall. I don't really want to do that. So, this was my first attempt, and hopefully only attempt at a homemade plenum. It works. And yeah, the next steps are attaching up the ducting and running it up and cutting some holes in the walls to run it through into the chicken coop. All right, so we'll get going to that next.